Okay, Zane, I want to show you just a little bit of a demo really quick on these pins and the troubles that we're facing here. So I have my pie here. The only difference is I've taken out my screws. So this is exactly like yours. And the case can be taken apart and you can change it. But so since my case is apart here, you can kind of see these pins here. These are called the GPIO pins. And the way that it starts, and I'll include a picture, but right here, this pin on this side is power, and it's pin number 2. So you count by 2s and go down to 40. So your red cables, there's two reds and a black, and so it should go red, red, black, and then you skip 3, and then you start back up, and this one should be black. And I think you have that plugged in correctly. But if we're running into troubleshooting, this is really a real life thing that happens. We can try and figure out what the problem is. So what I've done is these little cables that you have, they can be taken apart. There's a tab right here that kind of can be pulled back. Okay, you can kind of pull those back and take these off. You don't need to necessarily do that, but if it comes down to it and we need to bypass these cables here that you have a whole bunch of different colors of, we can bypass them and just go right to the board with these pins. So that's what I've done. So on these colors, the red is always going to be our power. The black is always going to be our ground. And then this color might change. For the most part, most of yours are green, but I do have some other modules that are blue. And so you might have to change, but this is input. That's what that is, or data. And so if we look at the board, and you'll have to look and match it up with the picture that I send you, or maybe I'll include it on this video. These 2 pins right here at the top are both red, which means that they're power. The only other power that we have is up here on this row, and it's the first pin. There's one other one that's 17, and it's down in here, but for the most part we'll only be using 3 modules. So there's a little bit on the pins and the connections, and so if you were to undo those connections, you want to make sure that when you're connecting it to the board, that the cable is all the way down, so you can see how far this cable is. It actually has to seat, and so it's plugged down in there quite a ways. So you want to make sure that the bottom of it is actually, you can't see that, is actually touching. Anyway, so I can hook mine up, and I'll get a flashing light. So I know that ground is, one of the grounds is right here, and I know that GPIO 23, which is green on your cables, is 16. So we can go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. And we'll plug that into 16. And if I plug my pi in, you want to make sure when you're plugging this in that you plug it in carefully. You see that it's not round. It's not an apple thing. So it only goes one way into the jack. Right there. So we'll plug that in. And when we do, we get power. I don't have a fan going. And this little end here, they can kind of be a little bit tricky. They really only go one way, but you might be able to force it in the wrong way, and then that might be the other reason that we don't have power. So we'll plug that in, and I have power, and that's how I can tell that I have power. So you should be able to do that. If you can't do that, then we've got something else. We've got something between the board and this connection here. Somewhere in the line we're missing something, or we're not able to make a connection. And so you'll have to figure out what that is. And like I said, if we have to, we can undo these, and it'll just take a little bit of a second, and we'll redo them. But we will only be using for the most part, until I get you another cable, we'll be only using these cables here, the blue, green, and yellow. And I know you have multiple greens and a few blues, and there's only one yellow, but we'll only be using those. So if you want to find the ones that are going to the pins, the GPIO pin 23, 24, and 25, you can basically disregard all of the rest of them as far as these colors go. The only other two colors that we'll be using are the red and blacks, and red is power and the black is ground, but neither one of these matter which part of the cable you hook into, because they all just go to power and they or ground. And that's all I have for you today. Hopefully we get this figured out, and I will be talking to you soon.